All right. Well, we are now in open session. I guess I'm used to welcoming everybody for our thing, so this is a little weird. I guess if we have anybody who is joining us afterwards, thanks for watching us after the fact. We appreciate it. Want to just take a moment to acknowledge the really weird state of affairs for not only our district, but for everybody's districts here in Missouri. But I definitely do want to thank all of the administrators on this call, and then definitely all of the teachers out there and staff and support staff and everybody who is really working through uncharted territory and just doing a fantastic job. So just first of all, a thank you for everybody for your leadership through this and everything you're doing to just be nimble and flexible. It is greatly appreciated. We will start, as we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance. Marita, I believe you have the flag. We will let her show it on the camera. I'm going to go ahead and stand. I guess we can.
Well, mine's on my lap. I'm standing up with it.
That's fine. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America
and to the republic for which it
stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right.
Really unique. It was really
that
unique.
was unique. And thank you, Marita, for supplying the flag for us.
I'm a good government worker. I always have a flag.
Yes, I have the big one that we hang outside in my closet, but I figured that'd be a little overkill to bring in here. All right, so 303, Superintendent Summary and Comments. Jason, we will let you start.
Well, good evening, everybody. We're going to do a little bit different than we usually do. Since we don't have, obviously, recognitions, we're going to spend a little more time in my comments. Obviously, with the COVID-19 closure, we're going to kind of go over some bullet points of how the plan's going, what we're doing to proceed with learning, and then we'll take some quick questions if we have those. So the first thing I want to reiterate what Josh said. This is a heavy time. This is a tough time for all of us, and I could not be prouder than I am of our community and how we've rallied around each other, from our CO team to our staff to our parents, our families, Board of Education. You have led us through this whole thing, and I just want to thank our community and thank our SCSD family. We are truly united. Most of you probably at this time have seen our letter and our announcements. We are closed for the remainder of the school year. It saddens us. It saddens me. A couple of my thoughts are, I'm sad for everyone, but I'm especially sad for our seniors, and I'm sad for that our seniors can't finish out
absolutely
their school year. And that's heavy, and it weighs a lot on all of us. And we're going to find a way to celebrate them. We're going to find a great way of having a graduation. And just a quick note on that, we met the superintendents in the area, met with the health director again yesterday, and a couple options. We won't go through all the weeds today, but are we looking at a virtual type of situation, maybe when we're still the same graduation date, or are we going to try to push it back in July? All of those things, and then what does it even look like in July in terms of where we're at with our orders of social distancing. So there's just a lot to get to with that, but I just want our seniors and our families to know that we are going to have a great plan in place, and we are going to make sure we honor you. My heart goes out to the students that are a part of activities and sports, and a lot of those all the spring sports and activities, events and theatrical events and proms. I mean, all that is taken away. And I want everybody to know that none of that's lost on the decisions that I or we have made as a leadership team moving forward. But we also know that our number one priority is to keep our community and our kids and our families and our staff safe, and that's what we're doing. So thank you for that. Board, CO team, anything you want to add to that?
I'll just add the work of our staff and our teachers. It has truly been phenomenal. So I know not all of you have kids in the system, but you can actually go to our publicly accessible Google folders that we've set up. It's just amazing the amount of collaboration that we're seeing occur across grade levels and departments to really create the best lesson plans virtually that they can as a team to share out with families and with students. So like Jason said, he couldn't be prouder. We cannot be prouder of the work that our staff has put forward and continues to put forward. The ways that they're trying to connect with kids and provide support is truly incredible. They've gone above and beyond with everything we've asked. We're providing a lot of really great professional development for them, and they're taking us up on it. They're using it. It's really amazing. And so giant shout out to the technology department and to everybody on my staff too. They have worked tirelessly to just flip this on a dime for us to get us ready for virtual. And I know a lot of the things that I've heard from our staff they've been very thankful for the resources and support that we've been able to put in place, the communication we've been able to put in place. It's allowed them to not have as much anxiety about this change, and it's allowed them to really get down and do what they do best, which is educating kids. And so it's just a giant thank you to them because they're truly amazing.
Anybody else, board or CO team?
I do. Have we provided Chromebooks and for more technology for our pre-K, for K through?
Yes, Donna, we're going to get to that in just a second. Any comments on thinking or just the general closure piece? We have all that as outlined here in just a second.
I would just say, I would reiterate what you just said. We really appreciate everything everybody's done to just jump in, and it's everybody. Danielle said, we're building the plane as we're. How does that go? We're building the plane
as we're flying it.
As we're flying it, exactly. Didn't sound right though, coming from me. But anyway, that's basically what's happening, and everybody's just doing their part to make sure that kids are being successful and that kids are getting as much as they possibly can.
I would say that at times this process for me has been a bit overwhelming with certain things. But at the same time, though, we really has rallied as a CO team and as a community. Working together, long Zoom CO meetings. We have one tomorrow. Just like brainstorming and really vetting everything through and really, crossing each other's T's and dotting each other's I's. So it's been, for me, going through something like this in my second year in central office has been a blessing to work with. My colleagues, my friends. It's just been, it's been strange to say the least. It's been strange. I've never experienced anything like it. But I will say our community has come together, and we continue to provide resources like the call today that we had with our staff that was open to all staff members. We had 30 on it that Danielle facilitated. But it's a great opportunity that if staff had questions or concerns, it was an open format. Anybody could have attended. And we've just set up so many things to try to take the burden off, because we know it's tough and we know it's challenging, but we continue to try to provide resources and opportunities to not make it as challenging as it is.
And the other piece too is that it's kind of united us as an educational community across the St. Louis area too. Our 5 districts in St. Charles County have always had a really good collaborative relationship anyway. But as we're moving forward with a lot of this, we're really doing it together, creating it together, talking about what will work in all of our districts so that we have a unified countywide approach to grading, to how we're working, what our expectations are for our staff, things like that. And then even across the St. Louis metro region, there's just so much sharing that is happening, and Zoom calls where we're hopping on because we're trying to figure it all out. And so I just think that everybody, this crisis allows everyone to come together and band together and really collaborate much more than normal. And so I think the whole area is stronger because of that.
So thank you to our CO team, our CNI team, our tech department, our food service, our custodians who've cleaned all of our buildings, our maintenance, and all of our staff. I just want to thank all of our staff for all that they're doing to reach, teach, and empower our students through this unprecedented time. And our administrators and our teachers, they're just working extremely hard to connect and communicate with students and families. And again, it's all about connection. It's all about engaging. It's all about making sure that our kids are safe and that they're healthy and they're happy. We will continue to communicate and connect with families through this closure. Everyone is feeling a little overwhelmed right now. We are looking at we talked about this a little bit already earlier in closed session, but we're looking at, what does a Friday look for us? Maybe Monday through Thursday is more of a new instruction and new content, and then Fridays is more of a flex day. And we'll get into more of those details with our staff the next week. But we're going to strive to find ways to make sure that we're balancing what we're doing and make sure that we're also moving forward with essential content. Food service pickup is continuing to go smoothly at Jefferson and Hardin. Our kids are getting fed. All families can come. We're keeping, right now, you've seen a couple of the districts have some unfortunate situations and they have closed. We've been told at this point by the health department and also by DESE that our service is something we need to continue to do. We're serving about 500 kids. Is that right, Charles? 500 families?
We had 700 on
700.
Tuesday.
700 on Tuesday. And so they're picking up 4 days a week and then 3 days a week. And so we're feeding them 7 days a week, which is awesome.
Jason, excuse me. I'm curious on that, about that. Why are we feeding all families? Anybody can come and get food?
Yes, so the difference is we're actually feeding them under a separate program. So normally during the school year, we are feeding under just the National School Lunch Program and its breakfast component. But right now, DESE has shifted at the direction of the USDA to what's called the seamless summer option. And obviously it's not summer yet, but it's just that program is set up to take care of students from low-income families who might have issues when school is out. And so during this type of closure, we didn't have any precedent for how to serve, but USDA moved quickly to change their rules. And so the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education recommended that all districts that were going to try and feed students during the closure use seamless summer option. And so one of the differences in that program is that you do have to offer it to any student 0 to 18, and and it's pretty much for anybody that shows up and not based on income requirements. However, we assume that probably most of the people who are taking advantage of it are those families who otherwise might have financial difficulties.
I'm not trying to be a harshest patootie. I'm just trying to understand.
Right, and so we'll get reimbursed for all of those meals as if they were free lunches.
Okay, but we're feeding the entire family, or we're just
we're feeding students 0 to 18.
0 to 18 students only.
Oh, okay.
But we have.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess my question is, if we're going to get reimbursed and we're feeding only the student, just for my understanding. So when I emailed you, Jason, and said, "Hey, what can I do to help?" and you said, "Email Mathis Slot," right?
Matthias Slot, yes.
Yeah. So what are they doing?
So they're volunteering to take food to families that can't get to us.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we've decided as a district that would probably be the safest thing is that we didn't get our buses out and our staff out into the communities, and that we would have. So we have 2 locations, and so what Matthias Slot is doing, and it's volunteer basis, they're coming to get that food and then taking it to those families that can't get out. So that's what they're doing.
So they're supplementing what we're doing. Okay, thank you.
But we also have other areas of supplementing food for our families as well. Care to Learn, Helping Neighbor with Calvary's, Matt Miller, you all know Matt Miller. They're doing an unbelievable job of providing food for the whole families. So that's happening as well.
Just on a positive note, I did call. The pastor called me back and he said, "Thank you so much for your offer to help. We're so extended. We got so much help. Can I put you on a wait list?" I said, "Sure, that's great. I mean, how great is that?" They're extended with volunteers and donations.
And
that's awesome.
that's Mark Sigmund. He's also with We Love St. Charles, and Mark is somebody who reaches out to me almost weekly about how they can help. And he just texted me today after he saw the last, just a side note, after the last letter we sent out. And if we do something virtual graduation wise, he wants to be a part of that. He feels like he's got some equipment that would really help us with that. So we have, the support is unbelievable in our community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Charles, did you want to add anything to that?
I would say, just to return to food service for just a minute, just for comparison, on a normal day we're in session, we normally serve about 2,700 lunches and 1,500 breakfasts. So it is significantly less, but obviously there's a need. And so we're filling that need for those families. And we've, just like Leslie, we had a lot of staff who volunteered to come up and help put lunches together or help with distribution. And really, we don't need that because we've got the underlying funding from the state and the federal government, but also just to keep fewer people involved as far as, keeping people away from one another. We Shirley Derby's doing a good job of trying to juggle her staff so that we get everything put together and distributed.
So Charles, I don't know if you stated this or not. I had to step away to check on the girls for a second. But we did send out information to all of our parochial and non-public schools in our community as well, to just make sure that all families with children the ages 0 to 18 are aware of this resource in case they need it.
That was next on my list. I had it right here to say it. That's all right. But that, and I've connected with Bormeo, Emmanuel, and Cletus, all three of the principals and the head of schools there, and they're very, very much appreciative of not only the food service, but also just the support and having, we're calling, we're texting, we're having conference today. I just talked to Deanna Mears from Emmanuel Lutheran, and just, hey, what does your calendar look like? What are you thinking? What are you hearing? It's nice to be able to have those friends and have those connections. So we are truly united with our parochial families as well in schools. So,
Jason, I have a question, please.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what happened to Riverview's food situation? Riverview.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Are you aware? You're asking me to give details on that?
Happened? Yeah, what happened?
Well, it was Ferguson Florissant, I think, that had unfortunately had a bus driver who was part of that transportation of food pass away from COVID, and they had 2 COVID-19 cases there.
Oh, okay.
And then Riverview decided to stop their food service, and then also Parkway has as well. Is there one more, Charles?
Those are the only 3 I'm aware of, and honestly, I don't understand that decision, except that they said that they felt like it was dangerous to their employees. We've continually talked with Chartwells, and so obviously their ladies use gloves all the time anyway, but they've ordered masks, and they're doing what they can do, and they're not overly concerned with it. So I was a little surprised, especially for the 2 North County districts, that they canceled. Parkway was only serving about 400 a day.
And to follow up on that, I had so the health director, we talked to him about that, and obviously if we're taking the proper precautions, which we are, he did not have an issue with us continue to serve food. And then also we talked to the State Department, DESE, and they're clearly said that we need to continue to keep our service going if we can. So, but we'll do that obviously very cautiously and hopefully safely. Okay, now we're going to get into how we transition from, because there was a lot of questions from the first, I say 9 days of this closure. So we had 5 days before spring break and then another 4 because we had that Monday off for PD. And so basically 9 days our kids were off until we got into this virtual plan on the 6th. And so those 9 days were spent with learning packets for our elementary kids, and our high school kids were continuing with some of the Google Classroom. Obviously, our 7th through 12th grade already had Chromebooks, and so they were already doing some things virtually. But everything was a review and enrichment at that point, and that's what we talked to you about last time about. But now we are transitioning, and I'm going to have Danielle take over this in just a second, but we were transitioning now back into a full virtual program. Answer your question about Chromebooks, Donna. We have had 4 days of pickup for all of our elementary school students to come get Chromebooks. So now all K through 12 students either have a Chromebook or have had an opportunity to get a Chromebook. I've been to all the sites where we were handing them out, and I would say a majority of the people have picked them up. And there's a lot of people who are using their own equipment at home. And so we feel really, really good about students having access with the Chromebooks. And then the internet piece. Danielle,
Jason,
oh, go ahead, Donna.
Did we have enough Chromebooks already?
Yes.
Ordered and on hand, or?
Yes, because we are 1-to-1 7 through 12, and then K through 6. We pretty much had one for everybody in the school. They just didn't take them home. Charles or Danielle, do you want to add anything to that?
What I was going to say.
No, I think it's going well, and with all of the Chromebook distribution, the teachers are doing a great job at the elementary level of making sure that they're sending out packets that the kids, for the most part, can navigate themselves. Things are going well.
So then like with the high schools, these kids check out the Chromebook, and then instead of using each day at school, they'll check them back in at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
That's our plan. We don't know what that looks like, Donna.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
And all of our elementary.
So Jason.
Oh, good. Sorry, Josh.
Yeah, I was going to say, you and I spoke separately, and you said that we were able to get for some of our families that don't have broadband internet, we were able to get some hotspots for them as well, so that they're not left out.
Right. So that's the next step. And so, and just so you know, also, the Chromebooks too, everybody had an opportunity to come get one, and they actually had to fill out basically a contract. What would you call it? A form or a waiver, or just make sure
policy.
Yeah, so for
a use policy. Yeah.
Every student has already signed a contract. They paid for insurance before they got that. We didn't think there was any feasible way to do that collection of insurance for K through 6, and so they do not have any kind of skin in the game as far as insurance money, but we did have them sign the same parent agreement that we have the older students sign.
Okay.
So then internet usage, get back to your question, Josh, and I'll let Danielle and Charles chime in on this one too, but there are hotspots that we have given out to about 40 families that needed an actual internet hotspot to use, so we've given those out. We also have more of those ordered, and then there's also some programs through the local internet providers that have either provided free or reduced services for our kids. Danielle or Charles, you want to add anything to that?
So before we were shut down, we knew we were heading in that direction. So Kevin Rich Miller and I and the CO team, we put together a quick survey that went out to our students and our teachers to find out what their capabilities were. Did they have a Chromebook? Did they have internet connection at home? Were they able to access content online somehow through a phone or some other device? And so based upon that information, we took that back and prioritized the distribution of the hotspots. We started with our high school students who were enrolled in college credit and AP courses because we knew those courses would continue no matter what the outcome was for the district. And then we went to other high school students and then down to hardened students. By the time we went through that list, our list of 40 hotspots were used. So like Jason said, we have more hotspots that are on order, but everybody across the country ordered hotspots, so it might be a few weeks before we get them. Charter has been a great partner to us. They are giving 60 days of free internet to anybody who needs it, basically, as long as they are 18 or older within their household. And so we've been helping them. Susie Mills in my department has been helping our ELL families with the language barrier. She's actually calling for them and getting it set up. It's super easy. They ask for your address. They ask for your date of birth. They verify that the person who is calling is 18 or older. They ship them the box with instructions in English and Spanish on how to hook it up. Presto changeo, they have internet access for free for 60 days. So the only time that that doesn't work is if they have an outstanding balance with charter. That's the only caveat of a situation where it wouldn't work, which is where maybe that could be a situation where when we get our hotspots in, we could maybe help out in a different way. But by and large, things have been going really well.
So one of the overwhelming parts of this week for families is that all the teachers are obviously emailing and connecting with families. And so one thing that we're trying to do, and Marita, you might have a question on equity, because I know you and I have discussed that this week a little bit, but the hotspots, the Chromebooks, the still having packets for people to get if they need them, they can download them or come get them that supplement the learning, as well as making sure that we're connecting with every family to see what their needs are internet-wise, and making sure that our kids are getting what they need. That's helping us with that equity piece. Marita, did you want anything, any more explained to that, or you have a question on that?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Because it's very important.
You're addressing it this way. Thank you.
Yeah, because it's very, very important.
There is one more piece with Wi-Fi too. Our signal at our schools is so strong that our Wi-Fi actually extends to the parking lots. So the other piece, in like a worst case scenario, if students needed it, if the parents drove to the school and sat in the parking lot, they could actually access our district Wi-Fi as well, as an option, as like a last tier option.
Okay, so now that we have everybody set up for the most part, and we're moving forward with our virtual classroom, we have a lot of our staff, our teachers are using Google Classroom. We're using Zoom for meetings. We have supplemental packages, like we said, for pre-K through 6. And we're talking about essential skill instruction is what we're doing. So we're looking at the very essential skills that our kids need to learn and make sure they get that. I'm going to have Danielle kind of go over all this in just a second. These are the next things now that we're into the virtual learning plan. We have a very specific presentation on expectations for staff, students, and parents. You've all have seen that as well. And then she can go in a little detail about the hold harmless grading approach as well that all the St. Charles County schools are using. So just, Danielle, if you want in a nutshell, just kind of talk about what that all looks like.
Sure. So when you look at the research on virtual attention spans of kids at different ages, things like that, knowing that we are going to have children that have barriers at home, trying to figure out how much time is enough time, how much time is too much time. So we have put parameters in place by age ranges on the amount of instruction and independent work that we're asking of students. Now, when I give you the ranges here, I do want to give a caveat of that's what was intended. However, when it translates at home, it tends to be a lot longer periods of time in order to keep kids on track and focused and things like that. So at the pre-K ages, we were looking at approximately 40 minutes. And so that what that would include would be video-based instruction. There would be movement, singing, dancing, reading stories, read-alouds, things like that to keep the kids moving forward, things that families can do with their children at home. At K2, that's about 60 minutes a day. At grades 3 and 4, it's about 80 minutes a day. And then when you get into the middle grades of 5 through 8, it's about 20 minutes per core area per day, plus your specials are once a week. And then when you get to the high school level, it's about 30 minutes per class per day. But again, the caveat is that's the instruction and the independent practice on the part of the students, but what we are hearing, and that's on paper and in theory, when we translate that into students doing the work at home, it is taking them considerably longer to get the work done. When we talk about the high school schedule on the block, the A-Day classes are on Mondays and Wednesdays, and then they're pushing out content for B-Day classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And Friday is an independent work catch-up day for the students to make sure that if there's anything that's still outstanding to their teachers, that they're able to get all of that turned in by Friday.
Danielle, have you heard from parents about, as you said, on paper, the time slots have been figured out, but in reality, so I'm wondering if you've heard from many parents who are saying their kids are getting anxious or feeling overwhelmed. Is it too much for some of these kids?
So the families that we've heard from say one of two things. Well, almost all the families say, oh my goodness, thank you so much for all of this. Thank you for putting this together. This is great. But then they will usually also say, but it's, you know, we're overwhelmed. As parents, they're trying to work at home while also trying to help keep their little ones doing what they need to do. We haven't really heard so much from parents with secondary students. We've heard mostly from parents who have elementary kiddos who require a little more assistance. I can say from the parent perspective, because I have a kindergartner and a second grader, my house, we run a tight ship here. We get up every morning, we have a routine, we get right to work, things go well, but it's a lot. But we're settling into a routine. Monday was a rough day for us. And I know I talked to a lot of teachers because I've been on Zooms nonstop. It was a rough day for our teachers. It was a really rough day for our staff who were teachers and parents. So we did hear that it can be a lot for them. So we're streamlining it with our teachers. We're talking with them about making sure that anything that's optional is listed as optional, because teachers are like, oh, well, maybe I should include this too. And so my conversation with them has been, if you're wondering if you need to do more, the answer is no. You're doing enough as it is. You're doing an amazing job. In fact, we probably can scale back just a little bit, because our goal is to help learning continue. Our goal is not to create anxiety or to create hardships in relationships between parents and children. And so that's a piece that we want to make sure doesn't happen either. And so that leads us into that conversation that we're starting about at high school. Friday is that independent work / catch-up day, and looking at pre-K 8, having a very similar model there. That would give families breathing room. So if one day is more particularly difficult for them in their household than another, they have a little bit of breathing room in order to get all of the assignments done and the work done and the learning done without having a power struggle at their kitchen table. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, thanks.
I can tell you, as a parent of a secondary student, man, she's at the table almost all day working. So there's no shortage of work on her end. But one thing, and this is a little off topic, I wanted to say it a little bit earlier. One of the things that I kind of wanted to acknowledge too is, you know, being able to hear some of these videos that the teachers are sending, hearing them kind of being vulnerable, for lack of a better word, but with their students, saying, man, I miss you all. I wish you were here. Wish we could be with you, but making the best out of it. It's touching to see that they're really trying their darndest to make the best out of this, but I hear it in those communications. They would rather be with the students and interacting with them. But yeah, definitely a lot of work happening at the secondary level.
Well, and that's one of the pieces that we really tried to stress to our teachers too, is that first and foremost, we need to make sure our students are okay and their families are okay and that we're all okay. But also just making sure that we're taking the time to keep that connection and that relationship going, because we don't know how long this current situation is going to last, right? So that's the first thing. Josh, earlier you talked a little bit about Facebook. So one of the things that I saw on Facebook that I think is super relevant, it was just a quote, and it just said, relationships before rigor, grace before grades, patience before programs, and love before lessons. And I think that in this kind of time that we're living in, I think if we use that as our lens and our framework for how we're approaching things, we're going to treat people with dignity and respect during this hard time, because we don't know how this is going to impact individual students or individual families. And so that's kind of been our approach. That's been our approach as we've explained this to our staff, that the two words I keep using over and over with them is we're going to approach this with flexibility and grace. That we don't have a user's manual for this. We've tried to create one, just so you know. We did try to create one, but we don't have one. And so it's one of those things that we are just going to do the best we can. We're going to connect with our kids. We're going to keep moving forward. We're going to provide support, but we also know that we're going to have hurdles and barriers to learning as we move forward, and we have to be aware of that and understand it. And it's okay for our students and their families to see us as individuals who also are struggling with this. Like you said, being vulnerable, it helps us connect on a different level.
I use the word balance a lot. We have to balance all of this. Questions on the actual learning platform or virtual learning plan?
I do have one question that it was more a curious question than anything else. The question in the, when you sent out the latest edition of, you know, like on assessment feedback and so on, I was just curious why in high school, when you hold a one-on-one live video session, you have to invite the principal to the session. What does that mean?
So that's more about the ability to maintain safety and having the opportunity for other adults to be in on that session. So I likened this to, in every classroom door, there's a window. So teachers work one-on-one with kids all the time, but in the regular classroom setting, an adult could walk by at any point, peek in. They might come in and say hi. They might come in and hang out and observe. And so this is kind of that same thing, that if we're having a one-on-one video session with a student, doesn't mean that the principal will be there, but it means the principal has the opportunity to be there. And so it's just a safety measure that most schools in this area are putting in place for one-on-one Zoom or video chats.
Okay.
Any other questions for the learning piece?
Do you want me to go over the grading piece at all?
Do you guys, we've sent that out to you all?
That's just the do no harm.
The hold harmless. Do you have any questions on that at all? It's just a real good balance of keeping kids going, but also giving them an opportunity to get their grades better if they need to. And really, we want to make sure that the learning is essential at this point.
You give me an example of a hold harmless situation. Let's say a student has a passing grade beforehand, and then he or she doesn't do any work at all, okay? And so they still get the passing grade? Is that
no?
Not necessarily, no. And so basically at the high school level, that's where we're maintaining grades. Mm-hmm. So the hold harmless provision comes into place where we are creating a third quarter grade that will take into account all of their work up until the last day before closure. So up through March 13th. And so whatever that grade is, let's say it's a 75%, then if students do the minimum criteria, and what we're defining minimum criteria is that they are engaging in and completing at least 75% of the assessments and activities, discussion boards, anything that the teacher is asking the students to do. So if they're doing at least 75%, we felt like they're trying. So if they're hitting that criteria, then their semester grade cannot be lower than their third quarter grade. There's that 75% that they had. Now their grade could absolutely be better. So if they, during this time, their grades improve and it warrants a higher grade, they absolutely can. If students do not do anything, then we have provisions in place that after the teacher has tried to make contact through multiple methods, emailing, calling, emergency contacts, whatever, that they are contacting the counselor and principal at the schools. The counselor and principals are going to run that family down through every method that they possibly can. If we can't get a hold of families at some point with our number of days, we're going to send an SRO over to do a well check to make sure that they're okay. But we're going to try to identify if there's a barrier for why the student's not doing work or why they're not logging in. Maybe it is their Chromebook's broken. Well, we can help fix that. Or maybe it's that they don't have internet and they have an outstanding balance with Charter. So we can navigate and get them a hotspot that's coming to us. So we're going to do our part to identify what are the barriers to the learning, and then we're going to work work through that. Now, when we get to the end, if any student is going to get a failing grade, the other provision we have in place is that the principal has to sign off on that. So the principal would have been involved in contacting the family, contacting the student, and making sure that that student is just not doing the work because they don't want to do the work. It's not because there's some sort of barrier to access or barrier to them getting this done. So we're trying to put in as many safety clauses as we can so that if there is an issue for an individual student, that we can help address it. And our goal is to have the grades not be something that are penalizing students when this tragedy and this pandemic is hitting their home.
Okay, thank you.
So kudos to our C&I team. They've just worked unbelievably hard to get us to where we're at. We have great PD for our staff as well, and I know you've all seen those opportunities as well. Danielle, anything you want to add about the PD? I mean, I think they've seen all of that, but.
Yeah, there's just a lot. We have a calendar that's happening every Friday as a district. Here on out, we're going to provide professional development that we've sought out and tailored specifically for our teachers and our staff. You are certainly welcome to join us for any of those if you want. We also have on-demand links. So even if you are struggling with that work-home balance or any pieces of this, you're welcome to hop on and watch anything that we have out there. So you're welcome to join us.
So a couple of things through this closure that I want to talk about. First of all, our schools, and Josh Schaefer and the maintenance department, I've already said this before, but I wanted to let you know that they have done a great job of getting our schools, obviously we're going to be closed for a while now, but getting those schools really sanitized, getting them cleaned up and ready to go once we're ready to go back. We also have our construction projects that obviously now, silver lining, we'll be able to finish up pretty strong. Charles, do you want to add anything to that?
No, we have, the only thing I'd add is we have disabled most of the staff's door access cards just to keep the buildings clean, and also to keep them from coming in. They're very diligent and want to do their jobs, and so it's hard to keep them at home. We do have essential staff who are coming in, but we're trying to make sure that they're not all coming in at one time and spacing those folks out for essential business functions and just the mail and paying bills, those types of things that you don't think, how can we do that? Otherwise, we're doing pretty well with buildings and facilities and things. And as Jason alluded to, we do have the floor replacement coming up, the Early Childhood Center, that is still the responsibility of the original contractor. And then we had a couple of pieces of our final bond issue projects that were at Monroe and at Jefferson that we were going to have to wait until summer to do. And I've already this afternoon notified the architects and associated contractors to let them know that we can start early.
Thanks, Charles. Any questions for Charles of facilities or? Okay, Julie, why don't you give us a little update, because you've been working extremely hard with your team too on our special ed needs and services. I know we're full blown into IEP meetings on Zoom, and just a quick little update on that as well, please.
Yes, and hopefully it doesn't disconnect me. I don't know if you can tell, but I've been disconnected about 5 times. But basically our staff has all worked really hard. We know that we can't deliver the same level of services that we've always delivered for our kids in the school building, but they're contacting each parent, each provider is, and in documenting all of their contacts, all of their efforts in order to provide the best services they can for our students on a continuity form, which is kind of like a little, I want to say it's almost like a little IEP plan while we're closed. Every kid's going to be different. We have some kids that just can't handle necessarily working on a laptop or an iPad. And so some of those services are being given as resources or learning activities for the parents to deliver at home. Other kids are getting direct therapy one-on-one, through Zoom or some sort of format, almost like a teletherapy. So we have a whole gamut of different types of services for kids being delivered right now. As I mentioned earlier, we have all of these IEP meetings, evaluation meetings, and eligibility meetings that our staff are trying to make sure that they keep up on. The state and the federal government has given us a little bit of grace with some of our timelines while we're closed. But knowing that if we just put things off, it's going to create a huge problem when we get back, because we will have so many meetings and things to catch up on. Our staff are holding meetings via Zoom, via email in some cases, over the phone meetings. So they're doing everything they can in order to kind of proceed with business as usual. And our secretaries in the student services department are still working very hard. Emily, our new Secretary of Student Services, is still working with our homeless families and reaching out to every single one of our homeless families to see if they have any needs we might be able to help with, connecting them with Care to Learn, Neighbor Helping Neighbor, and any other resources, and then trying to make sure that their learning is continual as well as we go through this closure. So I think I covered just about everything.
Any questions on special ed services? Thank you, Julie. Ronnie, just want to touch base real quick on with your department. I know you've done a great job with our FAQ list, our reference guide through this process.
Yeah, thanks. So with our FAQ list, really what we've tried to do is create a running record and keeping staff updated of what is occurring and the questions that they have collectively that we answer. And so what I've asked principals to do is for themselves to read it and be very familiar with it, but to use it as with our staff. On our call today with our staff, I'd said the same thing. We need to use the FAQ list as guidance, as vetted questions. These are questions that we've thought about as a central office team and then answer them to give them guidance. With that being said, things from an HR perspective, which really impacts the FAQ list, such as we'll continue to pay all employees, and we think that's a huge service to our employees. Hiring continues. It would be unique with doing this all on Zoom, but we'll continue to hire employees and interview, etc. And last but not least, as a central office team, as we talk more, we'll update the FAQ list. So there'll probably be another round of updates that we'll notify the staff of once we have completed them.
So I have a question, Charles.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rodney. So like, I'll just throw out, not to sound insensitive, but like bus drivers. Are we continuing to pay bus drivers? And if so, what are they doing?
So I'll let Charles talk about the task itself, but to answer your question, we are continuing to pay bus drivers and our support staff.
Okay.
That was a decision we made on
Charles.
Intentionally to go ahead and continue to pay them, Leslie, but transportation is probably the one department where we really literally don't have anything for most of them to do. So
okay.
We are going to try and do some professional development with them. Our barrier there is that they are our transportation folks and our custodians tend to be our least technologically connected people. Mm-hmm. And so we're still trying to figure out how we can do that in this era we're in at the moment.
Well, I appreciate that everybody's getting paid right now. I appreciate
one of the very unique things that we just have learned a little bit about in the last probably 48 hours, and we still don't have an answer for, is Chartwell's typically puts their people on furlough. Excuse me just a second.
That's awesome.
I wish we weren't on mute for that.
No.
Use my teacher voice for just a minute. The Chartwell's folks are used to going on unemployment during breaks. And so Shirley was getting ready to furlough all but about 8 of her folks. But what she's found is that really all of them want to be furloughed because they can currently make more on unemployment than they can while being paid because of the CARES Act, $600 additional per week that is being added on. And so she's going to run probably 15 or 16 people through those 8 positions so that all of them can qualify for unemployment. And so
gotcha.
We haven't considered exactly what that means, but we undoubtedly have probably a couple hundred employees that are making lower than the threshold where they could probably actually be making more on unemployment. But right now we're keeping everybody on payroll.
As a CO team, we'll be kind of discussing that.
Do you think we'll lose people?
Well,
I think it's quite possible from custodial and our lower paid folks at the buildings, for instance, our part-timers that are, crossing guards and lunchroom, playground aides, transportation. I think it's quite possible we will.
Okay.
And we'll continue to have those conversations as a CO team about what that looks like. But like for bus drivers, for instance, that is a very competitive market. And so if we let all our bus drivers go, now some of them might leave for unemployment, but if we just said, hey, we're done, all the St. Charles County schools are pretty much doing the same thing we're doing, and they are paying. And if we lose those bus drivers, we might not get them back. That's how competitive that market is. And so some of that's just by natural, but it's kudos to you all as a board, because as we've talked to Josh and you all very quickly, and you all were on board on doing that. We really appreciate that, because we have to be very cautious of what finances look like moving forward. We know that.
Well,
but
I thought you couldn't. You're talking about either being furloughed or. I thought you couldn't qualify for the unemployment things if you quit. If we
quit, that's right.
So if we continue to pay the shortage in bus drivers, if we continue to pay bus drivers, if they quit, they don't qualify.
That's correct.
And I can tell you right now, everybody is so appreciative of the fact that they're still with us and getting paid.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope so.
Hey, Rodney, I have a question for you. So for like the teachers in particular, or anybody else that they're trying to work and do their jobs, like Danielle, they have little kids at home, and if they're getting like really stressed out and all that, do we have like an employee assistance program where they can talk to somebody?
Yes,
we do. It's part of our employee benefits package.
Excellent. Okay, good.
Josh, teachers can still take their standard leave. If they need to take a personal day or convert a sick day to a personal day, they can do that as well. So, our standard leave practices, they still apply if their child is sick and they absolutely cannot work at all. Then take a sick day. So those pieces are still in place for staff. It seems almost counterintuitive because you're at home, so why would you do it? But it's very possible that a staff member might need to take a vacation day, a personal day or a sick day, or an administrative could take a vacation day if needed, if just needed to get away. So, we're there, and we're certainly trying to make as smooth as possible, but we know that there's my daughter in the background trying to duck, but I think all of you saw her, so she didn't do a very good job at that. But we certainly want to make it as seamless as possible for them. So employee assistance programs, as well as taking their standard leave.
Josh, I'm glad you asked that, because I feel like for the majority of our staff, we have to find that balance of when to turn that computer off, because it's great to be at home, right? It's wonderful to be at home, but I know all of a sudden it's 10:30, 11 o'clock at night and I'm still on my computer. And so, which is fine for me, but not for all of our staff. And it's like, we got to find that balance a little bit too. So,
yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Do we know how many of our students' families have COVID-19?
That's a great question.
It is a really good question. I don't have a specific number. No, we do have. I can just tell you, if we have an opportunity to know that somebody's sick or getting tested, people do reach out to us. I'd say it's a handful of staff or handful of families that have somebody in their family that we know of.
Okay. How about staff?
But I can tell you right now, no, I do not know of a staff member at this point that has COVID-19. Am I missing somebody specific staff-wise?
I don't know of any.
Yeah.
To date, we have 325 positives in the county. And then, but we have pending, looks like we have about 425 that are being monitored and pending. So really in a county of 400,000, we're still pretty manageable here. So hopefully, now I will tell you 63301 is experiencing the most cases.
Yeah.
And that's because of the frontier, a lot of the frontier nursing homes.
Well, yeah, and the discrepancy in healthcare. So, you know, we have more poverty in 63301, so we'll see.
Right.
So,
But Marita, back to your point, we do have some families that are dealing with it in their homes with family members. But I would say that can't be any more than a handful at this point that I know about. And our, you know, our teachers are doing a good job of connecting and then letting administrators know, and the administrators let us know. And we do have staff members that have family members that have COVID-19, so or coronavirus. So we're aware of that. We're hoping that spread from what we're doing is going to stop. But yeah, and we'll keep you updated. I apologize that I have not. I want to be very careful of sending out information, but I can probably do a little bit better job of giving you a number. At this point, I would not say it is more than a handful, or at least, you know, it's less than 10 at this point of families that we know of at this point. A lot of people have been sick through this process though. And and it's interesting as we've gone through this the last 4 weeks, right? There was like, nobody's getting tested, but people were sick. And then all of a sudden everybody was getting tested. Now we're back to not really testing a whole lot. So that's interesting as well. Danielle?
We do have one student who's lost a parent to COVID-19.
We have.
Really?
And that, thank you, Danielle, for telling us that, or reminding me of that. Yeah, we have. And it's very, very sad.
It's terrible.
We actually had a parent that was on the news, KSDK, and her statement was, if I would have known this was this bad, I wouldn't have gone out at all. She was a parent of ours as well.
Wow.
So through this closure, I wanted you to know, you can tell of the work that we put in. I want you to know, like, everything with our CSIP and our scheduling, our alternative education, those type of things obviously have taken a backseat a little bit. I don't want you to think we're not going to get to those things. I'm hoping we'll get in a groove the next couple of weeks and be able to get back to some of these things. We do feel like at our elementary level, our scheduling conversation can move forward a little bit quicker because we were in a little bit further spot than we were. So we are going to move forward with our committee, hopefully in a week or two, and then getting out that information to the staff about what scheduling looks like next year. We'll have an update in May for you on that. But then in terms of the high school, they've only met once, but we're going to try to get that committee up and going again. And then alternate education program, as we've talked about, that's been very, very slow, obviously on the back end, but all those things are right there, and we know we need to get to those things. I just wanted to give you a heads up that we're not skirting our other duties. This pandemic and this time has been, we've been working pretty hard on all of this. So I want you to know that we're thinking about our future and where we're moving forward. Planning wise, moving forward, obviously we need to have more conversation about what graduation looks like.
Hey, Jason, there's hands up.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see hands. Go
No,
ahead.
I'm literally raising my hand.
Please,
so
go.
I want to ask one more question as the resident. So I'm hearing all the good things. What are we missing? Like, where's the gap? Like, what are we?
Leslie, that's a question I should be asking.
Oh, sorry.
I think it's Leslie, Leslie, it's a really good question. I'm just wondering,
where are we not able to feel what needs to be done? And maybe there's not one. I'm just asking, like, where?
It's a good question. From what I see and what I hear, I think we're probably erring on the side of a little too much right now. A little too much communication, a little too much. But I think, again, I hope that settles down in a week or two, and we'll have to that's why we're looking at the 4 versus 5 and kind of balancing. So we're hearing that families are overwhelmed and our staff's overwhelmed. So I think we have great things in place, but how can we continue to balance all that? And then as we talk about, the Chromebooks and the internet usage and all those things, I still think there's probably some families we're still missing, to be honest with you. I think we still have to probe and figure out who those families are. And I think those conversations are happening, but I think that's a big piece of it still as well.
So Jason, are
students that have socio-emotional needs, those are so much harder to deal with.
That's a great point. Kids with special needs.
Our Centerpoint, Juvenile, are these resources coming in and helping out and stepping up and doing what we need?
We've had information come in from like Preferred, Kreider, whatever it's called now. Compass Health, they're doing a lot of therapy, teletherapy with families. They're trying to keep their services going as well, which is very helpful. One thing that has come up that we've talked about with our kiddos, or not with our kiddos, but our staff, is to be very observant about what's going on while you're on Zoom with them. Many of our counselors, when I met with them, talked about how they're kind of getting a glimpse of kind of like home, like how things that are going on at home and whatnot. And of course, our, you know, all of our abuse and neglect, they've had a lot less hotlines since this is all started.
Right.
So that might be where some of the gaps are. I think a lot of our resources and our community partners that we have are trying to like preserve what they're doing with students and families as much as they can through teletherapy as well.
And then I would just jump in to kind of tag on to what Jason said too. I've had a lot of conversations with teachers over the last couple of weeks. And so today's day 4 of virtual for us, right? So we're still kind of new to it. But what the teachers have said is over the course of the week, like at the beginning of the week when they were trying to do Zoom live check-ins with their students, they might only have a handful of kids. But then as the week went on, they were able to get more kids on board. But we definitely have kids that we're not engaging with yet. And so we're going to have to get to the bottom of why and then loop them back in. So that's, we're just still so early in the game. Like we have to get there to figure that out.
Right. You know, we jumped on this thing, Leslie, and I feel like we've done a great job, but this is not normal.
Sure.
This is not like seeing our kids. And so I'm very proud and yeah, we're talking about a lot of positive things, but to be honest with you, I worry every day. I worry all day and I worry all night about our kids, and our kids are in all kinds of different situations. And so we're not going to know. We're not going to know everything. We're not going to know what our kids are going through. And as much as we're doing, and like Julie said with special services, we're doing everything we can, but it's not like having kids in the building and really servicing kids. And so it's a lot.
And hopefully, you know, God willing, this is temporary. And so like, I mean, that's the whole hope here, is that this is like temporary. And that's all we can really hope for, is that in August we start back and we resume school and we resume all the resources we have, and you have access to those kids. And, you know, Julie, these parents who, you know, it's one thing to have a 17-year-old home who has a Chromebook and a desk and a light, who can tackle their work. But when you have a child at home who has incredible special needs, I can't imagine what some of these families are going through right now. And so I think at the end of the day, all we can hope is that this is temporary, right?
Yeah. And we've heard from some of those families. Yeah. We've heard from them. And a couple of them some of these families are just so overwhelmed. And so
I can't even imagine.
And they directly email me or Danielle or the CO team. And so we get the principals. So the principals get back on there with the teachers, and it's just coming alongside people saying, it's going to be okay. You might not be able to do all the learning right now, and that's okay.
Right.
And this is going to,
absolutely.
And just like I told you guys, CSIP and all, I mean, there's so many things I want to get to, but we're in a crisis right now. And it's going to set us back. It's going to set us back. We have to be very careful with financially what it looks like. We don't know all the ramifications as yet. So are there gaps? Yeah, there are gaps. Are we working our tails off to make sure there aren't gaps? You better believe it.
Right.
And it just,
as long as you know what they are and you're trying to fix them, that's all you can do.
Exactly. And
Leslie, some of our most significant kids are our kids that we had that were paying for contracts without placements. And those schools have been absolutely fantastic. They have been on it as quickly as we were on it. They were on it. They've been contacting us directly. They're doing very similar things. They're spending a lot of time with our students virtually. So they have like jumped right on it as well, and have made contact and kept us aware of everything they're doing as we go along.
Good.
You're talking about outside placement?
Yes.
I also think that for staffing, I mean, I think when the president signed the Coronavirus Response Act. While at this point, I think we think that that's a great thing because all of our employees are being paid, that provision sunsets in December 31st. So when we come back to school, that's additional 80 hours of sick leave and 10 weeks of paid FMLA that I think if the coronavirus sticks around based off the criteria, we could have staff, we could see an increase in the need for substitutes because we could have staff taking that emergency sick leave or emergency FMLA due to the coronavirus if it's still around. So from my perspective, that is something that I'm looking at and something that I will definitely be monitoring because you think we get 80 hours of sick leave, but that's 80 additional hours of sick leave. So they get what they normally get, but then they get another additional 80 hours, and that could pose some real staffing problems. And I don't think it won't be an issue now, but I think coming back, if this thing hangs around, it certainly will be an issue, and we're in session. It's going to be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I have
that also affect our self insurance?
Potentially. I mean, I think we're still working through all of that, Donna, but yes, there's definitely some impacts in multiple areas of the budget. I'll hit a few in the financial report here in a little bit, but yes, okay. I don't think we know for sure all of it yet.
Marita had her hand up too.
Thank you. So actually, and probably to Danielle, so our substitutes, are they ready to jump in?
I'm gonna
substitute teachers
to Rodney.
Are you asking about our substitute teachers?
Yes.
Yeah, so we are not paying substitute teachers. That's the one group that we did not pay. One huge reason is because our substitutes work with many districts. Very few of them work with just the city of St. Charles. They work with a variety of school districts. So that's the one group we are not paying on a consistent basis. So we're not in communication with our substitutes now. Two things. One, our long-term subs, though, that's a different ballgame. So if our long-term subs were with us when we started this on the 13th, we are paying them. If a teacher goes on maternity leave or needs a sub during this school closure, we will do our best to get a long-term sub. That's one. Two is that we do have our permanent sub positions that we have continued to pay that can be a resource for teachers if they do need time away from the virtual classroom.
And they know online, they know how to go online and do all that other stuff.
Yeah, Debbie Wilcox is staying in contact with them and forwarding all communication. But you have to, our long-term subs, Debbie Wilcox is communicating with. Our permanent subs, they get all the communication everybody else gets. They are full-blown employees with us.
Actually, Ronnie, Debbie Wilcox actually had our tech make a sub group, email group. Mm-hmm. And just tonight, I went ahead and sent this letter out to them as well. So I'm going to start giving them all the updates like everybody else, because even though we're not paying some of those subs right now, we really want to stay connected with them. So we're going to start communicating with them as well, just so you know.
So Marita, also one of the other things we've talked about too is if we get in a specific situation, it's difficult for us to find a sub that can handle all of this. We've also had the conversation of what does it look like for us to talk to the other teachers who teach the same thing in terms of maybe an additional contract or something else to help take on additional sections or additional students. Since in the virtual space you can replicate a lot of what you're doing for multiple students, but then it would just be additional contact and grading and things like that. So that's also an option. I did have a couple of things.
So we have this happening at high school. I was just to piggyback DT, we do have this at the high schools where we did not have a long-term sub for a math teacher, but the other math teachers in that department picked it up, and we just basically are doing the timesheet and paying them at their docket rate. So that's also has worked out as well.
So a couple of things though that we're not really ready yet for, but we have to start thinking about are the long-term implications of all of this. So when Jason says hopefully in the next couple of weeks things are going to settle down, we're going to start getting back to normal, that's when we're also going to start preparing for next year. So we're going to have curriculum gaps We're going to have kids who accessed all of this information at home and had parents that were fully supportive, pushing them forward. We're going to have kids come back to us that haven't done much. And so trying to figure out how do we shore up those gaps for kids? What implications does that have for our curriculum in all of our courses that first semester when we come back? Those are going to be pieces that we have conversations about. We also are preparing ourselves for long-term implications with trauma, right? Like, so this pandemic in and of itself is trauma. Losing your schooling, your friends, your safe haven for months is trauma. And so how are we going to be prepared to receive our students when they do come back to us, and how are we going to really meet their needs? And then the last thing that I've been starting to say to people too is this is going to forever change our landscape of education. With us flipping everything virtual, there is a train that was starting to move with virtual education anyway. This will accelerate that train. So I firmly believe that this COVID-19 extended closure, with everything being flipped virtual, even though it's not truly 100% expectation virtual kinds of things, it's going to forever change our landscape of education.
The other conversations we're going to start having too is what does it look like when, even in the I say the fall, August 24th, when students come back, what does that look like? Are we taking temperatures? Are there masks? Are there gloves? I mean, there's a lot of things that we have to look at because for safety precautions, and also, as we talked to the health director yesterday, what does the summer look like? And then what does it look like even coming back? Right now, we'd love to say we're coming back August 24th. And I don't want to scare anybody, but we have to look at things like, obviously graduation, but ESY, summer activities and camps. We're pretty much being told that June's probably not an option for a lot of those things. So athletics and activities at the beginning of the year, they're going to be affected by this. And so those are a lot of things that we have to take into consideration and plan for as well. So anything else? This has been great. This is probably the longest comments section I've had. This has been great. CO team, awesome job. Board, great questions. And again, Board of Education, thank you for your support and your guidance as well. Marita, did you have something else?
Yeah, I know this is hard to believe, but I hate to be the board harpy, but I could say that you can't. But I want to say this. I think that you all did an extraordinary job of crisis management. I mean, it's just been, to me, incredible. I think you've cut through all the egos, and you've cut through all the motivational issues, and everybody seems to be selfless. And so I really, I think you guys just did an extraordinary turnaround in such a short period of time. So I thank you.
So do I.
Yeah, I thank you.
Let me tell you something. You rock. The 4 people that I work with on the central office team, I'm telling you, and I know you guys think I always say great things and I'm just always positive. These 4 people have worked unbelievably to get us to where we're at. And I'm so proud to be a part of our CO team. So I just wanted to share.
Thank you.
And you guys have Board of Education, just reaching out and the communication we've had. And I hope you guys feel fully communicated. We're going to make sure you know exactly how we're going step by step. And honestly, we keep saying we're going to get through this together. And everybody talks about being united. Well, we've been talking that for years. We're united here. And our committee, our community has come together. Our family has come together. And it's not perfect. And it's not, but we are working hard every day. Thank you, Josh. I have a few other things. Are we good if I just move on with a couple other comments and then we'll be done? Is that good? Or not with my section, Lisa?
Yes.
Did I last time? Were we able to just at least name our outstanding employees of the year? Did we do that yet? I don't think we did. So just real quick.
I don't think publicly. No.
We had an opportunity as a CO team to get around and see everybody on that 17th while they came into their buildings. So we kind of got to celebrate this. But I just wanted to shout out to these wonderful award winners. Congratulations to Andrew Russell at St. Charles High School as our District Teacher of the Year. Andrew is awesome. Chris Hallam, our principal at Coverdale, is our Administrator of the Year. Regina Cotton at Hardin Middle School is our 7th through 12th grade Support Staff Person of the Year. Is it Gita Gohill? Am I saying that right? Gita? Julie, do you know? Gita, I think it's Gita Gohill. I know who she is, but I hope I'm saying her name right. From Noel Elementary, she's our pre-K through 6 support staff person of the year. Jennifer Mueller at St. Charles West, Miller, I should say, 7 through 12 teacher of the year. Megan Purcell, Jefferson, pre-K through 6 teacher of the year. Kelly Berg from Monroe, substitute of the year. Kara Canning, who made that wonderful video for us for parents from Harris. She's our specialized area staff member of the year. Carl, say Carl's name. Come on,
Shane
Julie.
here. Sorry.
Shane, thank you. Shane here. He is our district support staff of the year, and he does an awesome job with our kiddos. And then Evelyn Mertens at Lincoln is our volunteer of the year. So just a clap out, shout out to all of them. That's a perfect example of that list of how awesome our SCSD United staff is and how much they rock. Just to remind everybody at this point, we'll see if it gets extended. Julie or Leslie, you might have more information on this, but right now our election is now June 2nd. That hasn't changed or anything, has it? I have not seen anything.
June 2nd.
And we're still have our 3 3-year terms with 5 candidates and 1 1-year term with 2 candidates, and looking forward to that on June 2nd. We hope to have a new Benton podcast at some point as well through all this craziness. And then just a reminder that we are going to continue with our calendar. So Monday, April 13th is a day off for staff. And I just really hope Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, especially my central office team, because I'm going to try not to bug you at all. And also our, I will, but and our support staff, our certified staff, and all of our people working so hard will be able to take a 3-day weekend and really enjoy themselves with families. So that's my comments. Thanks, Josh. And thanks, board and CO team.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all very much. All right. We are moving to 3.04, board communications. Leslie, anything?
No one writes. I don't understand.
Right.
But the upside is I've gotten not one complaint. So there you go.
That's good. That's awesome. That's good. Audience comments. We were going to do a different form of audience comments. Kelly, did we receive anything over the interwebs?
No, I have not.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So
hey,
then,
Josh, if I could, Josh, real quick, if I could, I didn't know that Nicole Besselman tried to reach out to us. She wanted to just give a shout out to everybody, and she'll do that in May. She just didn't get it in on time. So she said she'll come back.
Okay.
Our co-president, Nicole Besselman, and she just really wanted to just kind of a shout out to all the staff. Right, Danielle? Is that pretty much what that was? Yeah, so just want you to know Nicole will come back on us with in May with that. So.
Okay, awesome. She just knows that I wouldn't be able to express it in the same way that she would. So
no, that could be possible.
All right. Well, moving right along then, we are in item 3.06. May I have a motion to amend or adopt the agenda, please?
I move we adopt the agenda.
Second.
I second.
Malone.
Who was the second?
Malone.
Malone. Okay.
And then Kelly and I agreed we're going to go ahead and do for all of these, we're just going to do a roll call vote just to make it easier. So Kelly, I'll let you go ahead and do the roll call.
Okay. Gibson?
Aye.
Towers?
Aye.
Malone?
Aye.
Knight?
Aye.
Thorne?
Aye.
Keen?
Aye. All right, motion carries. Item 4.01, for efficiency, the school board utilizes a consent agenda. Items placed on the consent agenda are routine in nature or are among the many decisions that the board has already determined are in the domain of the administration. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
Malone, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I second, Lori.
Okay. Thorne?
Aye.
Knight?
Aye.
Malone?
Aye.
Keen?
Aye.
Towers?
Aye.
And Gibson?
Aye.
All right. Item 6.01, policy changes first reading. A lot of these seem to be due to some recent state legislation. Any questions, concerns about said items? Yeah, Marita.
Because I don't have it in front of me. What was that third one? I think there were 3 of them on there, right?
There was a.
No, there were like 10 or 11.
Oh, there were? Oh, which one? I thought there were only 3.
Maybe it was the second reading where we had 3.
Second reading. Second reading. We have.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll do it at the second reading.
Okay.
All right, so this is, because it's first reading, there is no motion needed because we will revisit it next month. That takes us to 7.01, program review for financial planning and investment of surplus. So Chris, this is, if you will please show if Charles has a presentation, will you please show it?
Yeah, board, this is actually just your own policy that Chris is going to pull up. It's policy DFA, and it is the title revenues from investments, use of surplus funds. And so we just annually bring that to your attention. Nothing has changed in the policy, and we're not proposing any changes, but we just bring it to your attention because it does have to do with the use of funds and how we invest those. Just as a reminder to you, we have 3 primary goals related to this policy and investment of our funds. The first goal is safety, and that safety is really put into state statute. We can't just invest in any specific vehicle. We have to follow the rules set out by the state of Missouri. And then after safety, then we look for liquidity, meaning that we can get the funds, that they're not tied up for long periods of time. We occasionally do invest for 6 months or maybe up to a year if we have to, but we don't normally do for those lengths of time just because we need that liquidity of funding through the year. And then yield is our third goal. So yield is important, but it's number 3 behind the other 2 areas just because we've got to be able to ensure that we don't put our funds at risk. Ironically, just this week, we moved all of our funds, about $10 million from MOSIP, the Missouri Securities Investment Program, back to our main depository, UMB, just for this specific reason. The MOSIP funds have been a better yield, but carry a little higher risk. And so we brought them home so that we had more liquidity and more safety for our funds. Any questions?
And we can't see hands, so you'll have to just speak up if you have a question. All right.
What's the wording on the motion?
Are we ready, or did you have something else, Charles?
I didn't hear
you
any.
have to approve anything. It's an existing policy. It's just a review for your information.
Oh, there is a motion here.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we do need a motion to approve the financial planning and investment of surplus funds program review as presented.
I so move.
I second.
Donna.
Night.
Okay, Malone,
Aye.
Knight,
Aye.
Towers,
Aye.
Keen,
Aye.
Thorne,
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
All right. Now, Chris, because Marita might have a question on the second reading, so would you mind sharing the screen again? So, because now we're at the policy changes second reading.
No. Nope, that's the.
Yeah, he's getting there.
Oh.
All right, Marita, you had wanted to discuss or had a question about one of these?
Yeah, would you mind opening the IKF, the third one, just so I can see what it was about?
About graduation requirements.
Oh, no. Okay, I was good with that. Never mind. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or thoughts about the second readings?
I'll make a motion. No, I'm not going to make a motion.
So, the motion will be to move to approve policies IGAEB, JFCL, and IKF as presented.
I move. Malone.
Towers, second.
Towers.
Donna, you and I just keep tripping over each other.
Okay, Towers,
Aye.
Thorne,
Aye.
Gibson,
Aye.
Knight,
Aye.
Malone,
Aye.
King.
Aye. And finally, with not an exception, the best part of every board meeting,
I'm sorry.
Dr. Charles Brazil.
Can I ask
Sorry,
a
Leslie had a.
I do. You know, I guess because I don't have the agenda in front of me, I didn't realize we were as far ahead as we are. Jason, when are we going to start talking about anything around graduation? Are we going to start communicating to parents about what we're thinking? Are we going to cancel graduation as it is right now? And
Yeah.
I just think about parties and family coming in. I mean, are we?
Yeah, we need to, now that we know for sure we're canceled, and those conversations need to get pretty serious here pretty fast.
Okay, and I'm assuming we don't have an answer tonight. I'm just saying,
no,
we are going to.
Oh yeah, I keep saying it, and I've been very general, so I apologize, but we are going to do something for our seniors. We are going to have a graduation in some way. My personal feeling, just so you know, and I'm sorry if this hasn't been clear enough, I think we have, from what I hear from the health department at this point, as well as the other superintendents and kind of where we're at, to me, if you're going to do something virtual, if we're going to do something virtual at all, to me, I think we would keep our same dates.
Okay.
If we want to do something in person or where they come in 10 at a time, there's all kinds of things we can look at. If we're going to do something in person, we're probably looking at something probably later in July.
So do you think it would be feasible? And I don't know, I'm asking, would it be feasible, or would it be a good idea to maybe, Danielle, maybe if we put out a survey to families about what they prefer, want to keep the date? Would they rather postpone? So there's maybe different opportunities out there. I mean, and maybe we don't want to do that. I'm just, because I'm getting the sense, the only sense I'm getting is that people just, I think the whole anxiety of the unknown is starting to get to people. And so at least even if we started talking about it publicly or put a survey out there, they think we're doing something.
Well, it's in my, and I agree with you, but it isn't, we don't have any specifics because we don't have specifics to give them, but they know we're talking, because I put it in my letter that we're talking about graduation and we're going to have graduation. Lori, I know you had your hand up, but I will say this. To me, from what I hear and from the research I've done a little bit, I think you're either looking at some virtual on the days that we have, or we're looking at something late in July, and it's still probably not going to be a full-fledged graduation, but what does that look like? You will hear some of the other bigger school districts like Wentzville tonight, they went ahead and put it out on their letter that they have a alternative date at the Family Arena in late July. The reason why they had to do that is because they all go to the Family Arena. So they're all trying to get another date set. We don't have to do that because we have our own facilities. And so I think the next step for us is CO team, high school principals, start having a conversation, obviously call a committee, call you what you want, but get together. And then is it a survey? What does that look like? Certainly it is on top of our list.
I'm only going to throw in the fact that you only have one chance to walk across that stage in a cap and a gown. And so I know you're going to be talking about it, and you're going to be throwing out a survey or something, or you guys talking with other districts and stuff, but virtual graduation to me is I don't know. I would hope we can work something out.
Me too.
In summer where they can actually walk with that cap and gown.
Well, when I talk about virtual, that's what I mean. They would be able to get across a stage somehow, but it would be filmed there's a lot of ways of looking at this, but they could be on video. Everybody else could be video somewhere else. There's a lot of things we can look at, but I guarantee you we're going to do something special for these kids.
Well, I mean, if it was still limited to 10 or something people at the end of May as a virtual gathering, then maybe late July when you can get everybody in the.
Or maybe we go back to the football field.
Right.
Well, yeah,
You know.
there's all kinds of crazy things out there, like even people being in their cars and parking. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we can look at. I'm just saying, there's a lot of stuff you can look at.
Yeah.
And so I just want you to know, I think I put in this last letter at least 3 times about seniors and graduation. It's on our mind. We're going to get to it. It's step by step, but we will get there, and we will make sure people know exactly what we're doing. I will tell you this: the health director told us that you probably aren't going to have a full graduation. Certainly not in May, and certainly probably not in June.
Yeah, sure.
So,
yeah.
But I promise you, we're on it.
Thank you.
Marie,
Sorry,
Lori.
Charles.
Lori, I think, wanted to say something.
Oh, no,
sorry.
basically everything I was wanting to say has been said because, I mean, yeah, even if we come up with a date in July, we don't know that date will stick because we don't know what's going to happen in July. But yeah, you know, and I was just with like Leslie, even maybe we could just come up with, you know, the football field and, I don't know, do a big screen TV where the parents can tune in at home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're going to do something. And again, I just want you to know this: the bigger schools are getting dates set because they all have to fight for those spots but they might not even let them in the arena, to be honest with you.
Well, that's
and I will keep, as
We're
always,
so
I will keep you guys posted as we move forward with this. I promise you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. So after a brief pause, Charles, back to you, sir.
Oh, yes, thank you. And so I do have, Chris is going to pull this up in case you have questions about the actual data, but just as he's doing that, that several people ask, well, what areas is this impacting us financially? Well, so far on the revenue side, we have not seen an impact yet. So where we're going to see that is going to depend on several factors, but one of the big ones that you'll begin to see is when you see the big dip in sales tax that's going to come in the second quarter. That comes back to us. It all goes to Jefferson City and then comes back to us on a per pupil basis. Right now, that's about $1,000 per student for us. If sales tax is off, 25 or 30 or 40%, then we will undoubtedly see some withholding in those final payments of Prop C revenues back to school districts yet this year. You probably saw the governor withheld $500 million. Well, he's anticipating a shortfall of $500 million and withheld $180 million from the current year budget, assuming that we'll get some federal dollars to supplement and fill in that extra gap. And then the legislature was just today and passed an over $6 billion authorization for the governor to spend as money comes in from the federal government. So that will hopefully fill some of the gap. But just again, kind of one example, we get about $450 per pupil from the state based on gambling revenues in the state. The casinos have been closed since March the 23rd. And that's about $1 million a day that the state is not collecting in taxes. And those are the leading indicators. Some of the lagging ones that will come later are income tax doesn't have to be paid on time, so the state's not going to have as much money on time as normal. When it does get paid, it may be, again, next year, significantly less because of loss of jobs. And then the very last indicator, which is actually a good one for us that we would see, is if this were to go on to a point where it began to affect property values, then we would see that, but not for another almost full year would we begin to see that. I think that's the property tax is a big chunk of our revenue every year, about $50 million of our 80 million budget. So that's in this case, that's a good thing because it will lag. Any changes there will be much more slow to react. So we're going to keep our eyes on all of that and be pretty conservative in our budgeting. We have, as you all are aware, agreed to raises for our staff of 2% that we approved last year. And so there's not an issue where we won't be able to make those payments, but we certainly are going to be conservative on some other areas as we move forward, more so than normal. Any questions about any of that before I actually get into the report?
Curious question is, how much money do we, I'm just curious, how much do we save on having schools closed and not having activities?
Honestly, Maria, we're not saving much because we're still paying the staff, and that's 80% plus of our cost.
Okay.
We do save a little bit on utilities, but we can't obviously, you know, shut things down completely. This is a season with the weather change where we're not spending as much on utilities anyway. So we save a little bit on the electric bill. We'll save a little bit on not traveling to ball games. We're saving some by not running buses. So we will make some savings here, but the vast majority of what we spend is still going out because of our staff expenses.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so looking at the sheet that's in front of you right there, that's the healthcare trust. The numbers are a little bit small, but hopefully you can see it maybe at home if you don't have it there. We did have a really hard month medically, $761,000. That's our highest month ever since we've been self-insured. There are a couple of big outlier cases that we're aware of that we paid last month. And so we also know that of that 761, we'll get about 250 of it back in stop loss payments. So it's really about a $500,000 month, which is still a little on the high side, but not historic. And then you see the balances there reflected that drop to 2.3 million roughly. You can move to that next slide, Chris. You see that we did not get any county revenue. Local revenue has slowed down quite a bit again because we've got the vast majority of the local taxes collected. Salaries and expenses continue to about on par, although you'll notice in capital outlay we didn't spend very much as we wind down that 2014 bond issue or 2017 bond issue. We're just about done there. And so we're down to an overall balance at the end of this month of between 48 and 49 million dollars. 46.2 of that is in the unrestricted fund balance. And then the next page just reflects that whole year to date. So just shows the yearly or the yearly spending. So you can see there in Fund 4, that's where we spent $13.7 million for the year, even though we only spent just about $300,000 this last month. And then at the bottom, the numbers are the same. That 46.25 million is what's in our unrestricted fund balances right now. And then going to the budget adjustment report, we had a few small adjustments, but you can see down there at the bottom, the tail of the tape is we're still projecting about a 21.7% final ending fund balance. But again, as the longer this period of economic slowdown continues, the crazier it's going to get as far as having any kind of projection into the future of where we're going. So we're gonna continue to watch and update you as we have information, but the information is changing very quickly.
All right. Any questions for Charles? No, if not, then we do need a motion to approve the financial report as presented, please.
I so move, Donna.
Second, Marita.
Okay, Malone,
Aye.
Towers,
Aye.
Thorne,
Aye.
Gibson,
Aye.
Knight,
Aye.
Keen.
Aye. All right. So before we adjourn and log off, just once again, these are unusual times. We are in uncharted territory. So I want to thank everybody on this webcast. I want to thank all of our teachers, all of our staff, all of our families, all of our students. You all rock. There it is. You all rock, all of you. We are SCSD United. So thank you to everybody. Great job. Let's keep that communication going. Let's keep everybody learning, just like Danielle's little one there.
And thanks, Chris. Chris, help me.
Oh, yeah,
with
thank
this
you,
Zoom
Chris.
thing.
Thanks,
Chris
Chris.
Bennett.
Yes, Chris, definitely. So with that, we do need a motion to adjourn, please.
Towers, I so move.
Second, Malone.
Gibson,
Aye.
Towers,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Malone,
Aye.
Knight,
Aye.
and Thorne.
Hey, we are adjourned. Thank you all.